All right, so we spoke about the acronym FACES. Let's go through this. Take us through each one of these letters. What does the F stand for?
Remember when we spoke about this, we were purely talking about human relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to reiterate what we spoke about earlier, your biggest pain in life will always come from relationships.
Oh, yeah.
So your relationships become purely your spiritual university, and it always comes, unfortunately.
And your biggest joy, though.
Your biggest joy, if you understand it, and that's why this comes in.
All right.
But before we go to this, we had spoken about the things that you have to look out for.
Yeah.
Before you get into a relation. And number one is decisions. When you look at where the person is in their life at that point, it more or less tells you what kind of the decisions they've been able to make in their life. And more or less it can tell you where they're going to end up in the end if they don't change how they make the decisions. The second thing we spoke about when it comes to relationships, who's got their ear?
Yeah.
Who are they listening to?
Yeah.
Because every single time you get in a relationship with someone, or when you talk to them, they have to go and consult somebody else. Whatever the other person says becomes the answer that will come, or exactly what they're going to do.
Whose voice are they
Whose
listening
voice
to?
are they listening to?
But can that voice, it doesn't have to be a person. So if someone is working on a higher spiritual plane, I would assume that voice would be the voice of God.
The inner voice, yeah.
The inner voice.
It can be external or internal. Good point. And of course, the last one is habits. Your habits are your automatic responses. As we spoke earlier, somebody can't tell you how big a dream they have for the future, but the same person is still sleeping at 10 or 11. It just doesn't go. Their habits and the kind of picture they're trying to draw for themselves doesn't. But I learned this from the Hebrew language. Hebrew language is very fascinating because there's no single letter that does not stand for something.
Oh,
and if you see, Hebrew doesn't have a singular face. It uses plural faces. Because you nod to measure to me, but this is not the same face that your girlfriend knows. It's not the same face that your daughter knows. It's not the same face that your parents know. Our faces change purely depending on who we are. But for us to be happy, we need to have one face. And that's where for all people, when you have so many faces, it's very confusing for your soul. It's very confusing for your spirit. And of course, one of the biggest things we all want, we want peace of mind. You can't have peace of mind with so many faces. So we start with F. This one, it stands for family background.
Okay.
You have to understand your partner's family. And we're just talking about romantic relationship. We're even talking about business. Yeah, or any kind of relationship.
That's true.
Family background. If before you get married, he or she, you have to understand, go and see how their family behaves. I'm a kind of guy that comes from a very big family. So when we meet together for a meal, we shout at the table, give me that salt. But now you find somebody
You got a big voice. That's probably where you got it from, right?
Yeah, but when you find somebody from a very quiet family, you see them panicking. They think these people are going to kill each other. But that's how we relate.
Yes.
But you go to other people's families, somebody's a lone child. Excuse me, please pass me the salt. Like, are we in a funeral?
Yeah.
Are we in church? So family background. How does the mother talk to the father? How does the father talk to the womb?
That's so important.
Those are very important factors.
How do they relate as a family? And I suppose it's also, how does that person relate to their siblings? How does that person relate to their parents and the extended family, if you will?
You don't marry an individual.
Yeah.
You marry a
Marry
family.
that uncle.
Yeah. You marry into that family. A stands for attitude.
Okay.
All right? Positive attitude equals positive actions, positive outcome. Negative attitude, negative actions, negative outcome. Somebody can be physically very appealing and very beautiful, but they've got an ugly attitude. And the best way for you to know people's attitude is through observation. And it's always how they deal with people that are beneath them or under them. How they talk to the waiter, how they talk to the cashier at Pick and Pay, how they talk to the car guard, How do they talk to the house help? Those are the things, because that's their true self. You can never tell how people treat you or how they treat people. Your relationship with your boss.
Basically, what you're saying is how they treat people they don't need anything from.
100%. And that's where this comes in.
Okay.
C comes to compatibility.
Are we compatible?
In every area.
Okay.
Physically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. Do you like to exercise and she doesn't?
Okay.
Do you like to save money so that you can have a better future and she wants the future life now? Do you like hanging out? She still wants to go clubbing.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problem here is who you believe in terms of your God.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest one.
The biggest one, which we never factor in. Just because somebody is beautiful, just because somebody has a good job, just because somebody is a good businessman.
Just because someone has a six-pack.
It isn't.
Yeah.
Six-pack, it reaches a point where it means nothing.
Yeah.
The minute you go past this and then you realize this person is ugly inside, all of a sudden
Doesn't matter.
you realize you're not compatible. So they have to go through the compatibility test, and it's always using the 12 faculties of your mind. Try and tick. It doesn't mean you'll get all of them, but chances of you having better compatibility with somebody that has got 8 out of 8 out of 12,
Yeah.
is always much better than somebody that's got 2 out of 12. Okay? E stands for experiences. You are a collection of your past, and you are a collection of your previous relationships, irrespective of what people say. How much baggage are you bringing in this relationship? Are you punishing me for her mistakes?
Yeah.
Is she punishing you for her ex? Because that's where this comes in, and unless you understand this, you will always be in a very reactionary mood in that relationship.
And this is helpful for you as opposed to looking at your partner. You have to look at yourself and say, how are my experiences affecting this relationship as well? What do I need to let go of? What do I need to hold on to in terms of what I remember from my experiences? And sometimes it's also our experiences with our parents, our primary relationship.
Things that are in the immediate environment and things that we see on a day-to-day basis. Experiences makes it harder for people because most of us always think we're too afraid to question our partner's past. They say you're snooping on me. Have you turned the CIA on me now? No, it's not. I don't mean I'm going to be sneaking around looking at your phone, but I need to know why your last relationship failed.
But the best way to do that, I suppose, is to just have a conversation. I mean, instead of going back into the phone secretly, just have a conversation.
Totally non-judgmental conversation. But you have to be also honest with yourself. You can't be asking people to open themselves or lay themselves bare while you're lying through the teeth. You're telling them this, but they ask you, but you just did this. That will spoil it. The experiences is key. As we spoke earlier, you don't want to be reacting to things rather than responding, and that's where this gives you that ability.
With that, what you just spoke about now in terms of communication, is that part of this intimacy that everyone talks about, that sometimes we don't understand as men? We think intimacy is sex, but intimacy, like they say, intimacy, is about just being able to be vulnerable and speak about your experiences, what you went through, how they made you feel, so that you can give that person a clue as to how they need to treat you and how you will treat them.
Just being bare, being raw.
Yeah.
Being able to say what you feel, to express what your fears are, without judgment from the other person. And I think this is bigger for us men than it is for women. We're too afraid of being wrong. Most of us are very afraid of being vulnerable. But until you're ready to be vulnerable with someone, you never have the heart. Yeah. Because you always have your guard high. And the unfortunate part with that is the higher you keep the guard, it reaches a point where you shut yourself in. Yeah. You find it too hard to break out of that guard.
And I just want to say before we move on to the S, that what you just said now, a lot of men experience loneliness only because they're in a relationship, but their partner doesn't know their true self, who they really are. So they definitely feel lonely because they're wondering, does this person really love me for me? But you don't know that until you've given that person a sense of who you really are. And if they still love you, then they really love you.
But you see, that affects us as African men more than anybody else because we're not allowed to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Men are not allowed to, you're not allowed to have a soft side. You're allowed to be tough the whole time. You're allowed to, as we spoke earlier, you're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to feel pain. Just soldier on. Don't fall.
I just like to say to those guys, you know what? As Dr. Seuss once said, those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
And of course, our last one here, Mr. Tumisho Marshall.
Skills.
Skills.
Okay.
What
Talking about
skills? What skills are you taking to that relationship? Remember, we agreed that a relationship is a partnership. A relationship is a business. What skills are you taking to that business?
Are we talking about my ability to balance a ledger, that kind of skill, or the skill that I have in making a fantastic meal? Are we talking about the skill as a provider, or are we talking about like the softer skills as well?
We're talking both. We're talking,
Okay.
we're talking about what are the skills that the partner is bringing in this relationship that you lack in. You can be the best CEO in the whole world, but you can't keep your house clean. So if this person keeps your house clean, it's a skill that you need because a cluttered environment is a cluttered mind. You could be the best sports person in the world, but you're not good at preparing your meals. This person, you could be the best wherever it is in the world, but you don't have compassion enough to deal with your kids. So it doesn't have to be your traditional skills where it has monetary value to it. No, it has to be, what is it that complements you for you to be the best version of yourself?
And also, I'd just like to add, because you mentioned that, some people are thinking, oh, you mentioned cooking, you mentioned cleaning. Are we saying that as a woman, those skills are not tied to one particular sex? Those skills, a man should still be able to cook, and a man should also be able to clean. And it could be vice versa, but those skills are still very important.
100. It's not role-based.
Yeah.
So what do you bring? It doesn't really matter if you're a man or woman. What is it that is going to complete the other person?
That's right.
Beautiful.
Nice one. So remember, guys, it's all about the faces.
We finished for the day.